Welcome to Art Radio. Today, we bring you a story that bridges centuries, continents, and traditions. At its heart is the Rietberg Museum in Zurich and the GBF Foundation's Musavvari, the Foundation's first summer school, organized by Sonika Soni and taught by contemporary miniature painters Murad Khan Mumtaz and Manish Soni. Named after the Persian word al-Musavvir, the shaper of beauty, one of the 99 names of God, Musavvari carries forward the legacy of three towering art historians, Dr. B.N. Goswami, Dr. Milo C. Beach, and Dr. Eberhard Fischer, whose work revealed South Asian miniature painting to the world. The Museum Rietberg, their Stadt Zurich, opened in 1952, but it was in the 1970s that a 5-decade-long friendship began, leading to some of the most important exhibitions on Indian miniature art. The then director of the Rietberg, German anthropologist Dr. Eberhard Fischer, discovered the world of Pahari miniature painting at a lecture by Dr. B.N. Goswami at the museum. Joining them was American art historian Milo C. Beach, former director of the Smithsonian's Freer and Sackler galleries, known for his seminal work on Mughal and Rajput painting. Together, this trio collaborated on the landmark exhibition Masters of Indian Painting, first shown at the Rietberg in 2011 and later at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art between 2011 and 2012. Even today, that exhibition and its 2-volume catalogue is considered a milestone in the field. Carrying on the tradition of these three scholars, Musavvari gathers 12 young scholars, conservators, and artists from across the globe for 10 days of hands-on training in miniature painting. And today, on the last day of the school, I have the pleasure of speaking to 3 of them. So, good evening, and thank you, all of you, for being here. You have all been a part of a summer school which is called Musavvari. And it is a continuation of a long, long tradition. I mean, we are talking about miniature painting, which is a tradition which continues for, I think, about 600 years in Southeast Asia alone, more if you go into the Central Asian side of things. And you are carrying on a tradition of 3 extremely well-known and knowledgeable art historians, which is Dr. B.N. Goswami, Dr. Eberhard Fischer, and Dr. Milo C. Beach. So as the new generation of art historians taking over from them, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Art Radio, where we discuss Musavvari, the traditions of South Asian painting. So I'm first going to start by introducing all 3 of you. And I'll start with Naveed, who's sitting to the left. So Naveed is a visual artist and educator from Pakistan, trained at the NCA Lahore, where he specialized in miniature painting. He went on to complete a master's degree in visual Islamic and traditional arts at the Prince's School of Traditional Arts in London. He also teaches drawing and miniature paintings at institutions like the Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture. Our second person who's joined us today is Amélie Desvergnes, who's a conservator and researcher. So she's an independent book and paper conservator whose career has taken her from Paris to Qatar, Amsterdam, Leiden, and beyond. Her research illuminates the materiality of paper, its fibers, pigments, and techniques, and the social and cultural histories they reveal. She has taught widely, from Paris to Istanbul to Yale, and her publications on Indian papers and manuscripts are shaping the field today. The third person is from my city of Delhi, Indranil. He studied at the Maharaja Siaji University at Baroda and then earned his master's degree in arts and aesthetics at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi and teaches art history courses at the University of Hyderabad. So basically, the whole of India is covered as far as Indranil is concerned. Currently, he is a research associate with the Bombay Art Foundation, where he is cataloging Rajasthani paintings. So thank you all for being here. And at the end of a 10-day course, a very intensive 10-day course, I'm sure you've learned a lot and you have a lot to tell me about the course. So I'm going to first start with a few questions for each one of you and then open it out to the group to answer. So Amélie, your work is really interesting. It uncovers the biography of paper. What can the materiality of manuscripts and paintings tell us about cultural history? And I know it's a terribly long question, but break it down to what works for you.
Yeah, it's true. It's a really long question, especially when it comes to South Asia, because as people know, the tradition of paper making arrived a bit late in the subcontinent, in the 14th century, although it was known a long time before. But it took up quite a long time to develop and settle down. But once the technology appeared, it develops really fast into the northern part of the subcontinent. So we have a multiple paper making center throughout the different region of North India, which flourished, especially in the 17th and 19th century, and 17th and 18th century. It gradually started to decline slowly toward the 19th and 20th century, where paper was, the British paper was invaded the subcontinent, and gradually the scribes, the painters started to adopt Western paper. So we have a long tradition of paper making in the sense that it's rich. There are lots of different manufacturers throughout the western part of India. And but it's also interesting to see that there were lots of different qualities of paper made. Because as a conservator, I was not only interested in only looking at paintings, manuscript, but also I wanted to widen my experience and look at a wide variety of different objects on paper. So I not only studied in manuscript, but I also look at writing, farmland, official documents, letters, and also utilitarian papers that were used throughout the time. And I mean, the best quality of paper that was used was made for official writing. So when you wanted to write a nice letter, a beautiful letter to someone, like a king or a ruler or a prince, you had to use the most beautiful paper to write on it, because the ink you use, the black ink you use, has to stand out against the paper. And the whiter and the finer the paper was at that time, indicate that the respect you pay to the recipient of the letter. And then we can find different categories of paper reflecting on the material culture and also on the writing culture of the subcontinent.
Now, I'm coming to you, Naveed. Your
Yes.
practice bridges classical miniature and contemporary reinterpretation. And that's fascinating. But why are you interested in miniature painting?
Well, I started with a very, with the innocent thought to just learn the traditional technique at National College of Arts. And honestly, I wasn't aware of the legacy which it contains, because somehow in Pakistan, there is a disconnect to that classical tradition in terms of the local materials, which later I found that how the nature offers us all these material, because we rely on the stationery shops, how things comes in the packing. So that was easier.
And I've asked this of Murad before you. What is the most difficult part of this task that you've taken on yourself?
Well, every painting is a challenge as painter, but when you contemplate and get the thoughts on a right direction, when it's come in a very naturally, and you paint your your you can say concern also, or whatever you lock as an idea, and that you try to achieve through your practice. That's I think for me, it's nothing. I don't consider this difficult and easy kind of thing, but the thought process is more important than the doing, because doing somehow comes naturally. Because when you know the principles or the different styles of painting, which we are Indo-Persian, my forte is Indo-Persian, especially Mughal and Persian. And that's why I'm here to learn the Pahari, because I know Manish from a distance, but it's a golden opportunity for me to connect with him and learn direct from him in person. It's beautiful, actually. Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to you, Amélie, if I may. Uh,
Cool.
both Indranil and Naveed have a connection to South Asian tradition. While for you, it must have been even more difficult. What brought you to this?
I don't want to say something too easy, but I was interested by Indian art since the very beginning, very early on. I first had I received a bachelor in art history, and Indian art was one of my major. And then gradually, I started diving into it. I went to exhibition. I read a lot of book because all my knowledge is almost self-taught. I was also extremely fortunate to do an internship at the V&A in London, where I worked on the beautiful manuscript from the miniature painting from the Akbarnama.
Wow.
And then I did an internship at National Museum in New Delhi. So this really helped me to dwell further into the Indian culture. The key point for me was the position I had in Qatar, because I work on Islamic manuscript in general, but the collection also had a lot of Indian miniature painting. So for me, it was almost, I spent 5 years there, and it was a revelation because I was working on those objects every day. So, and then I met lots of nice people. I met Sonika, which was nice. And also as Naveed just highlight, it's a very one lifetime opportunity to work with Manish and Murad, because they are extremely knowledgeable and they are also very generous. So they share their knowledge without counting. And that was, for me, very important. Yeah.
Indranil, now I come to you. So you are a student, you were one of the last students of Dr. Kavita Singh as well.
In a way, I was fortunate to attend the last few of her lectures. She did not teach our batch as such, but my arrival in Delhi was at a point of time when she was just finishing her last course in SA, and I was, if I remember correctly, I was there for like 3 of her last lectures.
How did that affect your moving into miniature painting, or had you already decided that this was your field earlier? How does it work?
Well, one of my major reason to come to JNU was to be trained under her, which unfortunately did not happen. But I was, during my time in Baroda, my friends and colleagues and my teachers were mostly interested in, when I came to study art history, I knew nothing about it, to be honest. And it's eventually that training from these people and the guidance of, I am one of my very close friends, in fact, pushed me towards my interest in painting tradition in general. Um, uh, but not to say that that's the only thing I'm interested in general. South Asian art history and beyond European art history is so rich that it continues to fascinate me in all aspects of it. But speaking of painting tradition in India, yeah, my present work and my future work, I see it happening around that area. Yes.
How do you think this training is going to help you with all this scholarship and research that you are doing?
Well, I could go on for an hour, perhaps, or more
Please
with this
don't.
question, because of course not. But I'll begin with actually extending my gratitude to Rietberg, to the GBF Foundation for this one particular phenomena that's bringing together Manish and Murad here, because one is from present day India and the other one is from present day Pakistan. And it would be a really difficult thing to get them together, in any other place as such, especially in the Indian subcontinent. To begin with, I think that we often think a general consensus about Indian painting tradition is that the techniques that we broadly term as miniature painting is a dead tradition. But it's actually high time that we start thinking about it in sort of thinking about it as a living tradition, which continues, right, in an uninterrupted way. I have studied painters from this tradition earlier in the town of Nathdwara, where the Mukhera Chitya, the Mukhya Chitara, sorry for that, Parmanand Sharma. But studying these two masters, really, Murad and Manish, was something remarkable, because I was really taken to think about, because it's a collaborative work they're doing together and they're teaching us together, is, something, a kind of collaboration that you don't get to see much today. Them living continents apart, I mean, now, but also one belonging to Lahore, other from Bhilwara, Rajasthan. This would something that would happen, in the Mughal atelier, right? People from different geographic regions would gather together and they would train together and make works together. We may have very little, let's say, textual evidence in relation to what kind of practice or what kind of studio practices they would indulge in, or what would be the nature of that collaboration. But well, here you can perhaps sense some of it, right? Seeing them together. So that has been a really a breakthrough, I would say, for me, because we largely have gathered so far bookish knowledge for me. But seeing them painting together is, things start making sense to you. Like, well, we know that there are art historians who are using a lot of flowery words for this, describing these paintings. For example, sensitivity of hand. What do you mean by that? You know it, right, when you see it. In fact, that was, I think, one of the most revealing experience for me. You see Manish making drawings and you exactly know, what perhaps was being written about, what exactly scholars mean when they mean sensitivity of hand. Because as much as we progress in the art historical discourse and the discipline, I think the historians from 1950s to 70s, they're very important, not only because they were sort of setting the discipline in a way, the foundation for it, but they were also very in close contact with many of the last generational artists, right? And that must have enriched them in great ways. And like one last thing, I mean, I shall put it about how I am sort of gaining from this experience is, well, training with them, holding the brush, making the pigments, painting was one experience, certainly. But then we had a very important viewing session. I, for example, so far have only viewed paintings with other art historians. But it's a whole different experience, if I may say, to view a painting with a practitioner. They look at really different things, and the detail in which they can go into is something I've never experienced before. For example, I'm just tempted to put this example out there. We know that, the beetle wings were being used in Bashali paintings and later in some other Pahari schools and all. So we had this remarkable, like, Bashali Git Govind open in front of us, and I'm sure like all of us enjoyed it equally. But then there was Manish and Murad, who were looking at the beetle wings to figure out if the artists were using pasting the wings before or applying the gold before. Right? And that's something really, really extraordinary. I mean, it may not sound as exciting as I am by it, but these are the things that we miss out, mostly looking at objects. So that session, also the whole workshop, of course, but that session will stay with me for a long time, I guess.
And which was it? Do they put gold first or the beetle wings first?
Oh, the beetle wings. Really, Manish is of opinion that they put the beetle wings first and then they apply the gold. And yeah,
How did it not work?
really, I have a photo, maybe at some point of time I can show it to you, detailed, and it really looks like that there is an overlap. The gold has been painted over the beetle wing a little.
Maybe to hide the glue.
To hide the glue, perhaps. Very true, in fact.
Yeah, maybe.
So can I open the question to you both as well now? What
Yeah, sure.
was brought to your lives?
Go for it.
Yeah. As Indra mentioned it, I also had a lot of bookish experience before. I read a lot of modern essays, for example, for Pahari painting, one of the most complete essay was written by V.C. Ori, who visited descendant of painter. I think it was published in 1999 or something. And he recorded the tradition of Pahari painters. But it was a lot of theory. It's mostly theoretical. And also the problem is when I don't speak Hindi, I don't speak the local language, so I don't really understand all the terminology. So also there is another gap with this, the language and the terminology. And this is what we have learned here is explaining what it means, the terms also, and explaining some processes that I read, but I could never understood what they were. Like for example, we made caria, which is a white pigment made from chalk. And there is this whole very specific process of making it using a soap berry. And I read this several times, but I never really understood the whole process. And now everything is clear to me. So, because as a paper conservator, I'm very into practice, but also techniques and materials. And there are lots of things I thought I knew, and they are just new discovery for me because I really understand now why they do it. That's what was very important to me during this course.
Naveed?
Because in my bachelor's, we did sculpture, painting, and printmaking, but I never did the Indo-Persian miniature painting. So I took it as to learn a new technique, a new painting style, and then keep going. And it's like a reservoir of knowledge, and each painting gives us, and especially when you learn about the tradition is not something rusted from the past. It's now I feel we are part of the living tradition, and that legacy is continuing.
Been through NCA, for example, and you've been through the course in London, which has already taught you how to paint, unlike the other two. So how is Musavvari this summer school adding to your?
As I said earlier, the Indo-Persian is more focused in Lahore, and this Pahari and other Kangra, Chamba, and all these other styles. We don't touch. We do study in theoretical sense and theory and the visual tradition. Obviously, we do recognize these styles, but in practice, somehow we have more connection to the Mughal, and now if we look at the current practices, and which visual tradition has changed a lot. People do intervene and experiment with their own vocabulary and with the current subject matter, and Pakistan has a very different connection to this practice and the use of it.
In what sense?
In terms of contemporary concerns and conceptual art practice, I mean.
Yeah, because you've got a whole school of miniature painters going through NCA. So you've got Lala Rook, you've got now Samia Wine, you've got all these teachers who are teaching you miniature painting, which in India we actually have less of, from what I think. You all.
No, but that two different things: teaching theoretical and conceptual understanding, and the practicing, which I feel as a practitioner, it was a gap. Using the traditional material, I mean, earth pigments, like Amélie said about Kharia. Kharia is the egg earth pigment, which sources from a nature. And likewise, a lot of other pigment, geru and Peyote light. We have all these pigments in Pakistan also, but we were not aware of the application. And we were using as I said earlier, from the market, the Winston Newton and other companies, which, from international companies, we were using those pigment and adding white to make it opaque color. So it's called gouache. So we were using as a gouache, not as natural pigments. That's the main difference in the practice. And especially this workshop, adding to my practice is the focus on the Pahari style and Pahari method, which was, I think, it's a rare opportunity to learn in person from, as Indranil said earlier, it's so difficult in a current situation. I'm not putting any political aspect of it, but it is difficult to cross the border, though it's very closer. We are very close to each other. But the combination of Murad and Manish is superb in that term. Murad have covered so much the academic aspect of it, and the Manish has covered a lot of the practicality, the application, and how to lay the colors and the making of the different pigments. That's I think it was amazing to have them both here, and we learning from and absorbing from them. It's beautiful combination.
So can I ask a question which has been coming up through the reels I've been seeing that all of you have been putting out and all that? There seems to be an element of music, music played a part in this summer school at all, considering you're sitting in a place where big operas have been also created.
Yeah, that's really interesting observation. I must say, as a group, somehow everybody is aware of the Indian classical music, and we were just listening. And sitar was amazing, and yes, to going in a mental space and learning that in a real lifetime, it's such a combination, I must say, and it gives more meaning to it, rather listening a hip hop or anything which can't make you sit still. It's kind of a meditation where you really sit calmly and go into deeper mental space.
Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and I hope I keep in touch with you as you continue striding across the world on many more of these kind of adventures. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much for having us.